Rick Wilson is here joining us again. Rick, of course, is a longtime Republican political strategist. He's an author, he's a commentator, he's a co-founder of the Lincoln Project. Rick, good to see you.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on.
I'm super interested in all the stuff you've been writing about and talking about recently. I'm really interested in, as we get closer to these midterms, it seems that there are a lot of Republican candidates that are in this position where they have to say, okay, Trump seems to be a drag because economically he hasn't delivered, and my constituents know that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Iran war is unpopular. It's making things more expensive, et cetera. Fine. But
Yep.
I know that if I just straight up say, hey, this is not, I didn't do any of that stuff, that's Trump. It risks Trump trying to hurt them electorally and politically. If you were in the position of advising candidates as a strategist right now, what would you be telling them to do with regard to, are we talking up Trump, or are we ignoring Trump, or are we attacking Trump?
They're in a really, really tough spot, David, because the Republican Party has epoxied itself to Donald Trump. I mean, the number one thing about being in the Republican Party today is that you don't represent your state or a district. You represent Trump if you're in Washington. If you're a congressman or a member of the Senate, you represent Trump. And so the way they get through these crazy Republican primaries is to say, I'm the Trumpiest of the Trump guys. I'm super Trumpy. I'm the most Trump guy ever to be among the Trump guys. The problem is, as you pointed out correctly, Trump is a failure at so many things now, and the polling has just weighed down on these Republican candidates. He is underwater by nearly 50 points on inflation and prices. He's underwater by 35 points on the economy. He's even underwater about 15 points on immigration, which used to be the core of the Republican thing, right? The problem for them is if they say, listen, we tried it, but Trump has blown it. I can't support him anymore. I'm going to do my thing. They know that he'll come after them. Even if they're out of their primary, he'll hurt them in some way. And if they don't say that, the voters are going to make the correct decision. They're going to say, this guy's just another guy who cares about Trump and not about us. And we're seeing this in all these Republican swing seats out there where, in districts where Kamala or Joe Biden won, these Republican candidates are trying to have it both ways. A guy like Mike Lawler in New York's like, oh, I'm independent. I don't follow Trump. But he votes with the guy 97% of the time. It's really tough, David, for these guys to square that circle.
One of the things I've been saying is, there's these polls you always see where people are asked, do you approve of the job the president's doing? They go, no, I don't. Okay.
Right.
Do you approve of the job Congress is doing? And they go, no, I don't.
Nope.
Congress is like 9% approval. And then, do you approve of the job your representative is doing? And the number is much higher always. And one of the things I've been talking about is a lot of people don't seem to understand that even if they don't, I'm talking about moderate Republicans here.
Yeah.
They may not understand that the congressperson they're happy with has been effectively rubber stamping all of the stuff that they don't like that Trump has supported or has been saying to Republicans, you guys should do this stuff. I'm not seeing that as a prominent part of campaigns, but it seems that would be potentially a problem if that became a story.
Absolutely. And look, what you have with the Democrats right now, they've got a beautiful opportunity here. They know that the message of accountability and affordability go hand in hand. That corruption in Washington is what's hurting people at home. And that corruption comes from Republicans who will not fight for their own constituents, who will hurt the people they represent. I mean, when you are a Republican running against, or a Democrat running against any Republican right now, you go home to your district and you say, or you go to the district and say, listen, I'm not going to cut your Medicare Part D funding. I'm not going to let the tariffs continue that harm every business in the community. I'm not going to let Trump continue to collect billions of dollars in this crooked scheme of his in Washington. We're going to stop this. There are more Republican voters out there who will also go with that message, even from a Democrat right now. And it's not the majority of Republicans. The majority of Republicans are still with Trump. It's a much smaller majority. It was 90% last year. It's about 65% this year. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot in polling. And so all those people that have been winning these races, all these Democrats have been winning these races in the special elections, the off-year elections, they get it. you go after the corruption and the affordability, you link them together, and there's no Republican out there that is comfortable being able to say, "Yep, Trump did it wrong. He's crooked. I'm not gonna keep carrying the water for him." They can't do it, David. They just can't do it.
One of the funny things I sometimes see is these polls that say 98% support with MAGA Republicans. And it's like, yes,
Right.
among the group that supports Trump, they mostly support Trump. It's sort of like out of everybody who breathes air, 99% also breathe oxygen. Like it's a really way, but I think it's the
Yeah.
best number they have, I guess is why he keeps talking about it.
He always goes back to that of like self-identified super conservative MAGA Republicans who voted for Trump 3 times all support Trump. It's a
They love it.
miracle.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. Hey, you've talked about like the cover up of the decline of Trump, which I
Yep.
think is really interesting because listen, whether you use the word cover up or not, with President Biden, there was an effort to structure the presidency, his schedule, and his day to his best moments of the day and
Absolutely.
to make him seem as robust as possible. Probably with every presidency, but it was like more acutely necessary with Biden. We are now seeing, I'll just list what I see, and then I want to hear from you as how you define this cover up. Trump is increasingly restricted to 12 to 5, sort of like local time, wherever he is, to the
Right.
extent that he's on that time zone. When he does the Oval Office gaggles, he's usually seated when the press comes in, and then they're escorted out, and he's still seated, and it's shorter.
Yes.
The speeches are shorter. The media appearances, which were famously uncontrolled in 24, where it was like, spend 3 hours with the Nelk boys, they're
Right.
tighter and more controlled. These are some of the things I'm seeing. What are you seeing?
Look, I think all those things are absolutely part of the current corral they put Trump in. And they have had to do this because they recognize if they do things at the wrong time of day, he's going to fall asleep. I mean, the guy just passes flat out in some of these meetings. They recognize he's got a very limited amount of energy every single day. And so they are, and did the same thing happen with Biden? Differently, but yes. And there was a gigantic national brouhaha with the mainstream media every day. What's wrong with Biden? Was he sick? Is he dying? Is this, is that? We see less of that with the media with Trump. And we could, that's probably a show for another day. That's a 5 hour conversation. But he is clearly unhealthy. He's clearly gained quite a lot of weight in recent months.
Yep.
He continues to have this inability to stay awake. He continues to have this inability to um to focus when he is doing remarks and discussions. I mean, that speech he did on voter fraud in the East Room a couple weeks ago, he was A, clinging to that podium like it was a life raft, and B, hammering that teleprompter as hard as he could because he doesn't have that old ability to riff like he once did. And when he does riff, it goes into these weird rabbit holes and it is nonsensical. So there's been a very obvious decline physically and intellectually and mentally. He couldn't decline more morally. He's already been in that gutter for a long time. But no one in the White House can pretend that this isn't happening. They'll come out and say he's got so much energy. He's the healthiest. We all know what's happening, and the clock is ticking. And whether he whether he drops dead tomorrow or drops dead in 5 years, this is a guy whose decline. The latter part of his life is going to not be anything better than it was yesterday.
Do you have a sense of, or would you guess? I'm guessing you don't have any sources on this, but maybe you do. Are there honest conversations with him about how they are? No, so he's not even in the know about how this is being worked around him.
The one source that I spoke to a few weeks ago about this, who's and I wouldn't this I used to have people in the White House in the first administration, but I don't anymore. But I still talk to people around those circles. And one person said to me, not even Susie Wiles knows what's really going on. Natalie Hart and Dan Scavino apparently are the only two that he trusts to have around him during some of these things. So I don't think that most of the White House staff is fooled. I think they see it. I think they're not tricked by the party line. But I also think Trump's own character is so weird about this stuff that he's not going to tell anybody he's got X or Y condition. I mean,
I
probably the
actually,
White House
that's really
should have some
interesting.
idea.
That's really interesting, but I actually meant the opposite, which is, do you think Trump is clued into the fact that they are trying to play to his strengths with his schedule, or Trump's
Uh,
kind of like a backseat guy for this?
no, I don't think he is. I think he is. He is. I think they give him a lot of bright and shiny toys to play with when during his off time. Here, Mr. President, here's new drawings for the arch, or here's a new plan for the reflecting pool, whatever. Because as Maggie Haberman said the other day, she thinks that about 70% of his mental bandwidth is about all the projects around the White House and around DC, which in some ways that would be better if that was the case because he would be less dangerous to himself and others. But I think that he's not that acute anymore in the way that he can. I think he can be moved around a little more than he could be in the first term.
One of the things I wanted to run by you is I've been thinking about this whole 2028 Vance Rubio thing.
Yep.
And I am of the belief that Trump wants the next Republican candidate to fail. And what I mean by that is the
Oh
following.
yeah.
If you think about Trump's ego, does Trump want to retire to Mar-a-Lago and see his replacement be more popular,
Right.
more vital, have a higher approval rating? A normal person might go, look at the great state I left my party in when I transferred
Correct.
it. For
Correct.
Trump, it's, I want to prove to them I really was special and I'm the only one who could do this. So I actually think that Trump is not incentivized to turn this over in a way that will be good for Republicans. What do you think?
Completely agree with that. I think one of the things Trump wants to do in the 2028 election is to first off, I suspect he's going to drag it out as long as he can. He's going to keep teasing this. I'm going to run. I'm going to run. I'm going to run. Even though it's illegal, even though it's unconstitutional, he'll still tease that out there. It'll delay all the other Republicans from getting in the race. He's going to weigh in anytime any one of them is in any way off agenda at all. He's going to constantly churn the water. And and the one thing I think that would make him get behind one person is if he thought, okay, they're all weak enough, I'll put Don Jr. in there so I can keep up the grift, so I can still run things from Mar-a-Lago. Um, and again, that's to get into the Republican primary after Donald Trump is to have a target on your back from your own former president every single day. And I think that's a terrible place to be.
Is there a movement inside the party, the Republican Party right now, that obviously doesn't want Trump 2.0 to be the next candidate, but also isn't into the kind of Peter Thiel, techno libertarian JD Vance style thing, who wants to go back to like a McCain Romney type Republican? Does that movement
Yeah.
exist? And do they have any power?
No, not right now. Look, the tech guys who are behind Vance right now, they see Vance as a guy who gets their interests, will let them build out their AI data center universe thing,
Yep.
um, and will cause a will they're going to try to cause enough money to flow his way for him to win. I think that the fights inside of MAGA, the purity checking and the internal catfight is going to be unbelievable. I think we've never seen a Republican primary like this um, since probably 1988, when even though George W. Bush was the vice president, or George H.W. Bush, my old boss, was the vice president, there were still 25 people in that race. Even in 2016, you had 4 or 5 serious candidates, but 10 more not so serious, and Trump. But this is going to be all of these people have had such a suppressed desire to run. So you are going to get Rubio and Vance and Ted Cruz and Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. They're going to be a cast of thousands in this fight.
I'm
Which, by the
interested
way,
in you saying that you'll have Rubio and Vance because Rubio supposedly told Vance, I won't run against you.
was full of shit.
Oh, is that right?
I've known Marco a very long time. He's completely full of shit. They are
Huh.
planning his run. I know the guys that work for Marco at that level. They are all talking to the money people. They are all talking to the press. They are all talking to political, power brokers in the various early states. They are planning a run. Do not be fooled for a single minute that Marco Rubio, because he will come out and go, while I did not want to run against my friend JD Vance, I believe it is time for new leadership that breaks
Yeah,
away,
yeah.
whatever it is. I mean, I can see the speech in my head because I've written it 1,000 times. Um, but this will be a very big field. There will be a lot of people. The other thing, David, I think I'd love to get your opinion on this. We saw over the weekend this thing about um, Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Massey and all these other people forming another, what they're calling a movement, but it smells and looks like a political party that is going to be for those of you for whom MAGA is not crazy enough. Let's have something more crazy. I'm curious if you think that where you think that's going to go.
Well, I mean, listen, I hope it goes somewhere in general because so here's my thought.
Right.
I actually do think that right now there are people nominally on the left, or maybe the better word is ostensibly on the left. There are people who
Sure.
claim to be on the left who are sort of into like, hey, I don't know, Tucker kind of makes sense on some of this stuff. Marjorie
I've
Taylor
noticed
Greene kind
that
of makes sense.
too. It's kind of
Yeah. Nick Fuentes kind of makes sense on some of this stuff.
right.
So I
Strange
actually
new
think
respect.
if they created such a movement or party, I think they'd pick up a little bit of support from the fringe left, but I think mostly it's going to come from people that either would stay home or would vote for the Republican candidate right now. So
Yeah.
I think the math of it overall is favorable to the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to struggle to really get off the ground, to be frank. I would love it if it did, but
I
I
think
think
so
it's going to
too.
be tough.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, uh, even if even if it only dragged 1 or 2% off the top of MAGA
Right.
in 2028, I encourage Tucker to work very hard at this.
Absolutely. My thought exactly. Last thing, a guy like you, forget about who's running, but as
Yeah,
you look around at the names that are out there, are
yeah.
you more likely to support a moderate Republican? Are there any of the Dem governors that you see
Sure.
that you're like,
Listen,
maybe that's
yeah.
what do you
Listen,
think?
as a, you know, I'm a defrock Republican. There is no party that there's no element in the Republican Party that can win a presidential election right now or any election right now. So, I'm very excited about the farm team coming up in the Democratic Party.
Hmm,
You know, I think there are a lot of governors, as you said, that have are already putting together a good argument for why they'd be effective. And there are going to be a lot of scrapping back and forth on that. You're going to see the fights between that let's win big elections nationally wing, and they're going to see fights between the DSA wing, which is growing in sort of influence. You're going to see fights between the traditional old school party types. It's going to be, I think, actually a meritorious process. I think it's a good process for Democrats to air out. We've had we've had a decade plus where Trump is the overarching story of everything. Okay. Even during Biden, the reason Biden was elected was because of Trump. Even, e- even, even though Trump deserved to lose, Biden wasn't about Joe Biden. It was about an antidote to Trump.
right.
But I think the Democrats in 28 are going to have a really bigger assignment. They've got to show America something leaning way into the future. They've got to look way beyond this 15 years, 10 years of chaos and say, we're going to face up to AI. We're going to deal with the things that have been shoved under the rug for the last decade and hurt Americans so much. And they're going to have to deal with the mess that he made, but they're going to all have to come out with an argument of why they can win and why they deserve it. You've got to deserve victory in this world, and I think that that's really going to be um, manifested mostly by which one of these guys or women come out of the gate as a fighter. You got to fight for people who have been screwed by this era we've been in. You got to fight for big ideas. You got to show that you're going to take on this hate machine around the right and the alt right. It's exciting, but yeah, I always like a governor. I think governors, have a good angle on a lot of things because they've had to be in executive positions where it's tough to do that job, and you can't get away from filling the potholes and fixing the bridges. No matter what you'd like to talk about, you got to talk about the real shit when you're a governor. So we'll see how it goes.
We will see. It's going to be an interesting one. Rick Wilson, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your
Thank you,
time.
Dave.
We'll do it
Appreciate
again
you having
soon.
me, man. We'll talk soon.
Take care. Bye.